You've heard the hype. Flipping properties in Dubai will make you a fortune. And I'm sure you've heard this before because a lot of people are talking about it. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about renovations specifically. And I'm talking buying, renovating, and reselling. You know, it's a common thing in the market wherever you are in the world. And we specialize in sourcing and renovating and reselling properties for our clients here in the market. But it's not as straightforward as you may think. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the biggest mistakes that investors make when flipping properties, why sourcing the right property is probably the hardest part of the job, and how expert design and material selection is key to making sure you maximize your returns. So the first biggest mistake I see is people thinking that it's the same as it is back home. So a lot of people that watch my videos are actually property developers, say from the UK, from Europe, from the US, or from Canada. And as soon as they come to the Dubai market, they think they can just jump in, they can buy whatever property they want and expect it to make money. Now, here's the difference. In Dubai, it's a very particular market. Developers are more difficult to work with. There are sub-communities inside of Dubai, all right? So it's like many mini micro markets. So when you first get into this place, you start looking online, you're searching for villas, you're going from low to high, and then you see something standalone villa, maybe you see it for a good price, maybe it's in bad condition, and you automatically assume, I can go in there and I can start doing the work. But there's many factors that you need to consider before you even step into a community. First of all, you need to understand who's going to be buying this from you. Who's going to be the end user? So this is where we come in and we actually analyze in the market, who would this property be suited for? You know, right now, I'm sat in one of our beautifully renovated properties in Emirates Hills. Now, when we designed this, we thought of that with the end user in mind. We thought, what kind of person is likely going to be buying this? Well, we're opposite a golf course. Okay, there was no storage in the house. So we thought, how can we add storage in here? So just behind me here, we created an entire extra section for someone to maybe put all of their golf clubs. This is only a 3-bedroom townhouse. This is something that was considered quite a small built-up area, but you're facing one of the most luxury golf courses in Dubai. So if someone's got any golf clubs, in the previous floor plan, there was nowhere to put them, which didn't make any sense if you're facing a golf course. So you need to be thinking of all these little details. And especially if you come into the market and you're buying into a master community and maybe you've got like a fantastic designer, but are people actually going to be buying into this community? You know, you need to understand who is the person that is going to come into here and think, I want to call this home. So here is my advice. Before thinking about flipping your first property, seek out the professionals. Come to us, have a consultation, have a chat, and we'll show you exactly where your money can go, what you can do with it, what kind of communities are best for you to invest in, where you can really maximize your potential, where you can actually see the return on investment, making sure that you're not overpaying for your property and making sure you're investing in the right part of the community to maximize your returns. So the next important part to talk about is sourcing the property, because undoubtedly that is the hardest part of my job. You know, when an investor comes to me and they've got a certain amount of capital, I can't just pull a property out of nowhere. No, it takes time. Sometimes it takes up to like 4 to 6 weeks. And the reason for that is, you know, where's the first place people are going to look at? They're going to go into Property Finder. They're going to go into Beirut. And what happens to that? That's a publicly listed property, you know, with hundreds of thousands of people looking at these every single month. So if there's a well-priced property, how long do you think it's going to stay on there for? I'll give you a quick example now. Just a few weeks ago, we were about to close on just a small townhouse, a little Springs unit. It was on the market. It was an end unit. It was on the market for 5.2. That was the best price we found. We actually used Property Finder for this because nobody had any stock. We just thought we'd have a quick look and we found something and we thought, all right, it's been uploaded for, I think, an hour. We can get in there. We'll make an offer. And that's exactly what we did. We reached out to the agent. We made an offer. And guess what? Agent was like, just wait till Monday. We're going to see, you know, we don't want to push the seller too much. Sold. Gone. And it wasn't even sold through this other agent. It was sold through somebody else because it was such a good price. Obviously, the seller, people got wind of it and just hammered him and hammered him and hammered him. And actually, it sold for like 5.4. Okay, so this is the problem. You can't find things once they're on that listing portal because it becomes a bidding war. We don't want to get into those. So another part of the sourcing the property is understanding what is it that makes this property unique. As I mentioned before, I'm sat in a 3-bedroom townhouse overlooking the marina skyline, a beautiful lake on a golf course played by many professional golfers, right next to, you know, one of the Address Montgomery hotels. So there's access, direct walking access to a nice hotel where you can get lunch, coffee, drinks, whatever you want, you know, in a very nice sub-community of Emirates Hills with the birds, the trees, the greenery. This is a very unique product. So when you're buying into a master community, you need to understand what is it that makes this property special. So for example, again, we recently sourced and sold the Meadows project, and it was back in a park. So that gave us the edge over something else when someone, actually a seller, reached out to me one day and he said, come and see my property. And it was overlooking the road behind JLT. So it was super busy, it was super noisy. And that would be a problem for the end user coming to buy that, especially for someone who's going to be paying a huge upside on one of these properties. They're going to be back in a main road versus back in a park. What would you choose if you're paying a premium for an upgraded property? So these are all the things you need to consider. And if you don't know the lay and the landscape of Dubai, you're not going to understand these things anyway. If you go into this on your own, now I'm not saying this is not something that people can't figure out. I'm not saying it's pretty straightforward really when you think about it. But when people come into this scenario, they buy things without really thinking too much into them. They don't understand where it's going to go or what's going to happen within the community. Now, I'll give you another example quickly. I recently moved into Dubai Hills in a townhouse. And at first, we were about to move into a townhouse that was backing onto, it was a green belt and then it was the desert. And now this desert used to be a camel track. Now, this camel track is a prime piece of land situated just behind Dubai Hills. And for the last 5-6 years, it's been super quiet. There's been nothing there. There was not even any camels racing there. It was really old camel track. Now, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, there's a good chance that something is going to be built on there. And it's going to do our heads in, especially if we sign a long-term lease on the rental. And then I said, let's leave this one. Let's not go for it. We move somewhere else internally inside of the community. Now, I go on a walk every morning around this community, and guess what's happened? Big bulldozers, big JCB trucks, big noisy tractors just moving sand and gravel. And that's what's happening now. So again, this is what it's so important, because this would put an end user off. This would put someone off straight away. So that's what's so important. And that's how we can help you, source the right property from start to finish. Now, design and material selection is something that I see a lot of investors get wrong. And now I'm not saying that they've got a poor design team or they don't know what they're talking about, but a lot of people, they do things too cheaply. Now, again, I wanted to use where we are as an example of a high-end renovation. So literally, I'm going to start from here, even from the little details like the wood veneer and the gunmetal grey doors, solid materials, okay? And then we created like this special paint throughout. Now, special paint gives that luxurious feel to these newer houses that we see on the market right now. And then when we walk through, already you probably see what I'm standing on. The entire house is real marble from even into the maid's room, okay? Now, when we designed this house, okay, we didn't cheap out on anything. We wanted to make sure that we're going to be bringing the person who's going to be buying this a really luxurious experience. So I'm going to make my way to the kitchen and just explain again. We use full Miele appliances. So from the cooker, the microwave, to the coffee machine, to the fridge, okay? We created a leather green marble countertop and backsplash vanity here. And again, Miele appliances on the gas top. And then you see this big custom marble worktop in the middle of the counter, and you can't see it here, but I'll show you on the video. We've got custom joinery shelves integrated into the marble, all right? And the reason I'm showing you this is because every little detail does matter. You got to think about who is going to be buying this property. Now, when a buyer is spending, 15, 20, 25 million, 30 million and above, they're going to notice all the small details, the plastic composite, wood fluting that you've used, the fake porcelain floors, or, the cheap countertops, or the Siemens appliances in a 20, 30 mil house. You're going to expect a certain level of luxury. And that's, again, why we stress that design and material selection is one of the most important things that you cannot get wrong. Buyers see through it. There's a lot of competition on the market. You need to get it right, and you need to work with experts who know what buyers are looking for. Remember, never skimp on materials. Never cheap out on design. Quality pays off. This will help you sell the property. There's nothing worse than doing a poorly renovated house and it's sitting on the market for a long time. So if you are an investor looking to invest in the Dubai market and you're looking at getting into the flipping property game, and you've got at least 15 million dirhams to play with, then reach out to us, because we're going to help you from start to finish source, renovate, and resell the property. We've got plenty of experience doing this in the market now, and all what you need is expert guidance to make sure that you don't get it wrong. Look forward to seeing you on the call.